Chapter 10. Revealed. Kate sat with her legs clenched around the horse, staring down the sights of her rifle as she ordered one more time. "Put down your weapons or move on. I really don't give a shit which. Just pick one." She could tell the three men were Americans, but she didn't recognize the patch on their shoulders. What stood out to her the most were the letters CERT, but up to this point she'd had no opportunity to ask what they meant. Instead, she was focused on their movements and whether or not to fire. Something caught her attention just behind the three men, near the area Sierra had entered the woods. Not sure what it was, she kept her eyes locked on the three so that she wouldn't give away Sierra, if indeed it was her. If not, then her rifle was still pointed in the right direction. Struggling to think of a solution that wouldn't get one of them shot, she hoped it was Sierra, and not just another scared soul running off. Using only her peripheral vision, she could see Carlos with his rifle directed at the men, and to her right, Mac and Darian were sitting quietly with their weapons aimed at the center of the men's chests. The two were happy to let Kate and Carlos deal with the situation and just keep them covered. Kate thought about how much time had passed and figured it was most likely less time than she thought. Experience had taught her that when you are staring down the barrel of a gun, each second seemed like minutes. Kate's heart almost stopped when she saw Sierra appear on the bus, and it took all of her strength to withstand the urge to look in that direction. Although she didn't know what she was up to, she didn't want her reaction to give it away. "If we put ours down, what then?" Kate asked Carlos, Mac, and Darian's surprise. Kate had no intention of lowering her weapon and surrendering to them. She did, however, intend to keep their attention on her. One of the men who seemed to be in charge looked at the others, thinking they were getting the upper hand. "You will come with us for processing and housing." Still looking down her rifle, she could make out Sierra nearing the driver slowly. She reached out with one pistol, tapped the driver on the shoulder, and brought the other up to her lips. Kate could only assume she was shushing him. Whatever it was, the driver and Sierra both left Kate's sight. At that same moment, Kate heard Carlos's breathing change, followed by a slight groan. "What do you mean by processing and housing?" Kate couldn't think of much more to ask, but was happy they were no longer just telling each other to put their weapons down. "What do you think it means, lady? Medical, history, then housing." Frustration could clearly be heard in his voice. Kate took it that they were not used to anyone questioning what they were doing. She was sure that there were many who would give up their freedom to the sound of housing with the implication of food. She also knew she wasn't one of those people. "And if I say no?" she asked, not only to buy time for Sierra, but also because she was curious of the answer. "Ma'am, I'm afraid that isn't an option. We have orders to bring in anyone with a firearm regardless of whether they want to come," he stated, full of confidence about his mission and purpose. "Like these?" Hearing a voice that was clearly not the driver's, they quickly twisted halfway around. To their surprise, in the driver's place was a girl with two very large pistols pointed at them from 5 feet away. Seeing the men still hadn't lowered their weapons, Kate snapped her finger a few times. Hey, over here, boys." She paused to give them a second to respond. "Good boys. If I had a treat, then I would give it to you." That was followed by snickers from Mac and Darian. It was clear on the three men's faces that they didn't know what to do, but they understood that they were no longer in charge of the situation. "Okay, here is what's going to happen. First, we're not going to go with you. Second, you're going to put down your weapons, as I so politely asked. Third, you're going to give us information." Kate stopped and thought, "I guess that will do for now. Let's start." Motioning with her rifle for them to put down their weapons, Kate watched as the three turned back to Sierra, who was making the same motions with her pistols. "And if we—" Kate cut him off. "No, you will do it now. I'm tired of playing with you assholes. Put them down or we open fire. I will give you until the count of 5. 1, 2. Knowing they were in no position to do anything else, they lowered their weapons on the count of 1, and by 2 they were on the ground. Seeing what just happened, Kate mumbled, Well, that was a little disappointing. Sierra withdrew from the bus's side window, and a moment later she was walking around the front of the bus, with the driver still tied and gagged alongside her. "You didn't tell me guests had arrived, Kate," Sierra said sarcastically. "Well, Sierra, you didn't say when you would be returning." She turned to Mac and Darian. "Would you please secure their weapons and make them a little less comfortable?" "Thanks." Mac and Darian used the zip-tie handcuffs the men were carrying to restrain them. Afterward, they began going through their pockets, hoping to learn a little more about them. Each had some type of wallet that held ID, which Darian handed to Kate. After taking a quick look at them, she pulled her canteen up from the side of her saddle and took a sip before she spoke. "So, you work for FEMA, huh?" The same man began to speak as before. "Yes, and you are making a big mistake here. If you do not... save it. I don't need to hear how you work for the government and how I'm going to be in big trouble." As Kate spoke, she mocked the man by waving her arms in the air as if she were scared. "There isn't a damn thing you can say that I want to hear, so shut it. Anyone else have something useful to share?" Kate looked at the other men, hoping that they did. After a little time passed with them looking at one another, not quite sure what to do. The driver started to speak, and when he did, the others snapped their heads in his direction, shouting, "No!" For that, Sierra pistol-whipped the presumed leader, laying him out cold. It happened so fast that he never heard her shout, "Shut up!" Kate nodded her approval to Sierra, who grinned back. "Now, if you would please continue," Kate said softly to the driver. "Can I ask a question first?" Kate wanted him to feel as though it was a two-sided conversation they were having, so she granted his request. He swallowed before he spoke, and then looked around at the group that held him. "Who are you guys? I don't recognize the uniforms or the unit patch." "Good question," Kate replied. "We are with the United Constitutional Militia, and have been hunted by the government since before the EMP. Now who are you? And where are you taking people?" She took another drink from her canteen and waited for a response. Looking around at his captors, he thought better of asking another question, though he had many on his mind. Instead, he answered hers. "I'm Specialist Carter. I was brought in to drive, that's all. I was assigned to drive these guys around to pick up people and bring them back to the camp." He stopped then, unsure whether to go on. "What camp?" He had Kate's full attention along with everyone else's. "FEMA camps. There are many more than this one." Sierra looked up at Kate when Carter had stopped. "That fits with what the squirrely guy I questioned said." Kate tried to make sense of the information but couldn't. Why would FEMA gather people and have them live in tents? The EMP didn't destroy homes. The other still conscious in his group wasn't happy with him for giving away information, and did their best to stop him with their facial expressions rather than with words. The sight of the last guy's face planted into the pavement, with a few pieces of teeth strewn across the ground, stuck in their minds. That didn't stop Specialist Carter from speaking. "It and the others are not tent camps. They are concrete facilities. I believe they're modeled after old Soviet block housing. They cover a lot of land and have a secured perimeter. The two I've seen look to be only a few years old." Kate thought to herself how easy it had become to believe what he was saying. A few months ago, if she'd been told the government was building FEMA camps in which to place the American population, she would have laughed. Now Kate just thought, "Yeah, that sounds right." Kate felt good about Specialist Carter. The tone he used when talking about the FEMA camps was one of disgust, and he wasn't wearing the same uniform or patch as the others. "Mac, would you help Specialist Carter up and cut him free? I believe we may just be on the same side." Mac was having the same thought as Kate about Carter, and was happy to free the young man. He wasn't so sure about the others, but knew he didn't want to just let them stay there on their knees. "Kate, what should we do with the others? Kill them?" Mac laughed at the sight of their faces. Although the rest of them knew Mac was joking, the CERT men didn't. Kate played along, but only for a second. "Well, I'm not sure. It is hard to replace bullets these days. Just find some rope and we'll tie them to a tree just a few yards in the woods." Mac acted like he was saddened by Kate's decision as he and Darian gathered rope and walked the men into the woods. Kate continued to gather all the information she could from Carter. "How far away are the camps, and how many are there?" Carter thought briefly before speaking. "It is hard to tell how many. The place is large, and they have been bringing people in for weeks. I'm guessing about 60,000 and an unknown number of personnel. Those they bring in are separated into groups of ordinary citizens, gun owners, and veterans." With everything that had happened, she didn't think she could be shocked by anything, but this place was unbelievable. Kate wondered how so many things could have been going on, and nobody thought to ask what places like this were for or why. Kate felt as if she had to see this place for herself. "How far is it?" "It is only about 45 minutes from here. Listen, I know a back road where you can get a good view of it from a safe distance. That is, if you want." Kate wanted nothing more at the moment than to find out more about the place, but didn't know what they would do with the horses. "What do you think, Sierra?" Sierra had already planned on seeing the place. "We go and we take his buddies with us. Carlos can watch him." "What do we do about the horses?" Kate knew that if anyone had an idea about that, she would. "Oh, that's easy." Sierra spoke with a smile on her face as she used her thumb to point over her shoulder. "We load them up." Kate looked over at the bus with no idea how to get the horses inside. "Okay. What do you need to get it done?" Sierra looked around at all the abandoned cars and trucks and spotted a small box trailer hooked to the back of a truck. It wasn't big enough to fit all the horses, but she only needed it to handle one. "I just need our new buddy Carter here." Patting him on the back, she explained the plan. "I need you to use the bus to push the rear of that trailer over there so that you can back up to it. I will do the rest from there." "How will that work?" Carter asked. Kate knew better. She had seen Sierra do some awesome things since she had known her, and she trusted her when she said she could do something. Carlos also sat back and let Sierra do her thing while he kept watch. Sierra wondered how it wasn't obvious to him. "I will load one horse in the small trailer and raise the drop-down gate as a ramp. You just have to back it up so that I can drop it onto the bumper." Halfway through her explanation, Carter felt like an idiot for not understanding her plan. The process wasn't easy or fast, but they managed to get them loaded and were on the road within an hour. Specialist Carter had assured Kate they would be able to get there without being seen. Having just gotten to know him, she wasn't sure if she could trust him, though she liked him more than those now tied to the bus seats. As they rode along in the bus, they could see people as they hid from sight. Seeing their reactions, she knew the FEMA camps couldn't be the life of luxury. "The road is just ahead," Carter announced. "It's a few miles down and then we'll have to walk a little." Everything looked good to Kate, so she figured it was time to make a plan. "Listen up." She gave them a moment to focus on her before continuing. "We're not all going to be able to go. I'm going to need somebody to stay with the prisoners." Looking each one in the eyes, she wondered who it would be and hoped Sierra wouldn't volunteer. She was relieved when she heard Darian speak. "I got it here, Kate." "Okay. If anyone tries to get away, you know what to do." Kate preferred somebody older, but she had faith in him. "Yeah, around to the knee will keep them from running," Darian said with confidence to reassure her. "Very well. Specialist, show us the way," Kate said, turning to Carter. After checking their weapons, they walked through the forest atop the large hill they had just driven up. 20 minutes into their walk, Sierra asked the question that everyone wanted to know. "How far is it?" It was a question Carter was waiting for. "Not far. We should be coming to a clearing soon that looks over the camp." They walked and watched for the trees to part. Carlos was to set eyes on what Carter called an opening. "Damn, son. You could have told us it was a drop-off, not an opening," he exclaimed, walking up to the edge of the bluff. Each of them moved closer, as Carter directed them where to look, though that wasn't needed. Looking out over the land below, they could see a vast area covered with concrete buildings surrounded by a complex fence system. There were people everywhere they looked. Good God, man! Carlos couldn't believe what he was looking at. That facility is massive. Sierra stared as amazed as the rest at the sheer scope of the place, then at the people who walked around. She wondered if this was what they had planned for her uncle's farmland, and if it was now the same as what she was looking at. One area caught her attention rather quickly. Most of the camp had people coming and going except for one large section. What's over there? Carter remained silent and hung his head, unable to look at it. Not willing to let it go, Sierra asked again, more aggressively. I said, "What is over there? Why is there nobody outside?" Carter knew just where she was inquiring about and pointing to. Even though they were so far away, there was no way of telling. That is where they keep the soldiers who resisted, as well as the veterans and anyone else they thought would be trouble. I have many friends in there. They could hear the shame in his voice as he spoke, though Sierra didn't care about that. What kind of friend lets them sit in a prison like that? She asked, not expecting a response. Before she found out if she would receive one, a single shot rang out back in the direction of the bus. Shit! Darian!